So I started reading a new book the other day. It's called The Return of the Prodigal Son by Henry J. M. Nouwen. And Nouwen was a professor and lecturer at Harvard. And he was at a point in his career where he was trying to decide if what he was doing was meaningful, if it was making an impact. And he happened to take a sabbatical and go and visit a friend and see a poster of the Rembrandt painting of the prodigal son from the Bible, the parable that Jesus told of the prodigal son. And it just happened to really move him for some reason. He didn't really know why. And he ended up being able to get a poster while he was there visiting that friend in Paris. And sometime later, I think it was a year or two later, he went to visit another friend and go to Moscow, Russia, St. Petersburg, which was at one point St. Petersburg and then became Leningrad. And that friend, who was also a professor, happened to know the curator of the museum where the Rembrandt was. And he had the privilege of going in and getting to sit in front of the Rembrandt for multiple days for as long as he wanted. And he would just stare. And there was like a skylight shining down on the Rembrandt painting. And so throughout the day, he could see each character, the father, the servants, the son that came back, the prodigal son, and the son that stayed. And he could kind of see them in different light as it would move from darkness to daylight, to busy crowd, to empty museum, and so forth. And this book basically, and I'm only early on in the book, but it's basically he goes back and forth between the parable in the Bible and the Rembrandt painting and looking at each character. And how did this affect this son and the father and the servant, and kind of seems to be painting the picture that we all are a little bit of all of that in there. We are the prodigal son as Christians and non-Christians who have walked away from the Father's love and from our purpose on earth of glorifying God. And many of us have returned after wallowing with the pigs, and seen the Father's grace pour out upon us. Also, at the same time, many of us are the other son who stayed behind. Like, look at all the works I've done. I've done all these good things. Why does he get what I got? And at times, we're the father with our children leaving and coming back as the prodigal. And sometimes we're the servants who are seeing the grace and the things that are lavished upon this son, who, when he was wallowing in his pity, sleeping with prostitutes and running out of money and being left, he's thinking, man, my father's servants are treated better than this. I could go back and become one of them. And the servants being able to see the goodness and the love and the grace and the mercy of the Father. And we are also like that in servants. And so early on just page 13 in the prologue, Nouwen writes, moving from teaching university students to living with mentally handicapped people was, for me at least, a step toward the platform where the Father embraces his kneeling Son. It is the place of light, the place of truth, the place of love. It is the place where I so much want to be, but am so fearful of being. It is the place where I will receive all that I desire, all that I ever hoped for, and all that I will ever need. But it is also the place where I have to let go of all I most want to hold on to. Forgiveness and healing is often much harder than giving it. It is the place beyond earning, deserving, and rewarding. It is the place of surrender and complete trust. Those things are definitely true for me. I find that it is easier to serve others. It is easier to be kind to others. It is easier to encourage others than to encourage myself. He later writes that listening to the voice of truth and love was indeed the journey I most feared. And he writes, I am called to enter into the inner sanctuary of my own being, where God has chosen to dwell. The only way that through that place is prayer, unceasing prayer. I spend my life growing up in church and Christian school and Christian family, and um, been ordained as a pastor. I've served as an elder and a youth group leader and teacher and many of those positions. Um, and I've spent countless hours in prayer, and I've seen uh, things that I can only describe as miraculous, of just not supposed to be, not supposed to happen, from the way that we adopted kids, how that happened. Um, it's an amazing story if you've never heard it, to my mom's medical health and everything. But when my health failed and I hurt my back and I lost my job, and my health has just continued to not go well, and we changed churches and moved across the country and moved back and had to make new friends and lost friends and all of those things. Um, the magnitude of the losses just get harder and harder. Losing friends, losing things you cared about, losing things that you used to be able to do, whether it was surfing or playing basketball or playing with my kids. Being patient or more patient, being more kind and less grumpy because I'm not in pain. And now I find myself, I yell more, or I raise my voice more at my kids. I get frustrated more. I give in more. I don't have the fight, if you will, because the fight is hard. Um, and there was something about that first passage where it was just like, it just hit me, you know, how why is it that the place we most need to be, the place we want to be, the place we should be, is often the most difficult? Maybe that's what separates overachievers from underachievers. Maybe that's what separates the strong-willed from the weak-willed, the kind from the assertive. That there's a thing to just push on for that goal, whether it's athletics or business or whatever. And I'm 44, almost 45 years old, and I don't know if I really know what I ever wanted out of life other than to just, work and pay my bills and have a family. And I'm very blessed. I haven't been able to work for quite a few years. We can still pay our bills. I'm home with my family. Got a beautiful granddaughter. I got a grandson being born tomorrow morning by C-section. And in many ways, I'm extremely blessed. And at the same time, there is somehow that longing of that place I want to be, and I don't really know what that place is. I don't know where that place is. I don't know how to get there. And maybe I'm fearful of being there. Maybe there's at one point I thought I was called to pastor, to preach a church, but I don't have the education. I'm not qualified. I wanted to run a business, and I worked in a business for a long time that I had hopes and dreams of taking over. It didn't happen, and my dreams were crushed, and my goals were shattered, and my expectations weren't met, and things just seemed to just one thing after another, with family members' sicknesses and health, and lose a little bit of joy and lose some humor and lose some fun, and just kind of pushing through the dark muck of night, looking for the light of day. And it's so easy to look at that muck when you're in it. It's so easy to look at darkness when everything's dark. It's hard to look at the light. If you've ever been in a great cavern, pitch black, and being able to look and see a tiny light and focus on it, and how much strain that takes on your eyes. That's true in life, being able to press on and strain for that goal. And I do know that one thing in my life that's been constant is my faith. And I believe when my body has failed and my back has blown up and my neck is hurt, my faith has stayed. And that in the future, when I'm an old man, Lord willing, my faith will still be there. And I will be there by prayer and through prayer. The prayers of myself, my loved ones, friends, and family, and those that may watch this.